Okay, welcome to the Vanspective Part 2 on LJN. Real quick, we're going to touch upon two more games that the AVGN did, and we'll be right back.
Okay, this is X-Men on the NES, and coming up is also Wolverine. Again, like I said, not going to look at them. Angry Video Game Nerd did a great job with those. I just wanted to show you real quick so you could at least see him for just a second, and X-Men looks worse than that.
Okay, up to this point, as the filming of this video, I am done rehashing games that the Angry Video Game Nerd did, which makes me feel a lot better because I'm not here to rip anybody off. Last episode, I said that we were going to the foundation of LJN. Where did they come from? How did they get the ability to acquire all these movie-based licenses? Well, in the 1960s, a gentleman by the name of Jack Friedman worked for a toy company called Norman J. Lewis. And in 1970, he decided to start his own company called Lewis J. Norman, based upon the company he used to work for. Lewis J. Norman, aka LJN Toys. In the 70s, they were mostly the toys lines. They got a little bit into the Pong consoles that came out in the 70s. And in 1985, with the Nintendo and the Sega Master System reviving video games after the crash of 1983, a company called MCA decided to acquire LJN Toys and use them to put out video games based upon movies that they were making. Now, those of you who are younger may not know who MCA is anymore, but they were basically a movie distributor in the 80s and 90s, which was a big thing for them. It was a huge movie. It was a good deal for Jack to do that, and allowed him down the road to found other companies, which I will get into in part 3. But by 1989, MCA decided that they were not profitable, and that was pretty much due to the reviews and the games that were getting put out. And in 1989, another company acquired LJN, and I will also get into who that was in a little bit here, next episode. But for right now, we're going to get into the gameplay for another Spider-Man game that LJN put out called Maximum Carnage.
Okay, so this is the Sega version. We're going to start with that. This came on both NES and the Sega Genesis. The music, anyone have any guesses to who did this? It was a big band at the time, if you want to call it that. Any guesses? None? Alright, let me give you another hint.
Living on the farm, he knew nothing of the city. Built his house out of straw, what a pity. Then one day, jamming on some chords, along came the wolf, knocking on his door. Little pig, let me in.
That's right, it's green jello. We all called them green jelly. We didn't know they were green jello. Side note to that, the backup singer was a gentleman by the name of Maynard, along with the drummer for Green Jello, went on to start a band, kind of a small one called Tool. Now you know. Now, looking at what's going to happen here, you're going to see there's a lot of different characters in here. My understanding was the Maximum Carnage was a big deal in the comic world back in the day. I don't know. I didn't really read that one. I was a huge Spider-Man fan. In the comics, I prefer the X-Men and the Batman comics, so lots of characters, and you think it's going to be epic. Lots of people. Even more people. Of course, you got to have the hemoglobin. The game was pretty much in a comic. Now, I cut a lot of this, you guys, and set up at a comic pace. This goes on forever. And ever. Even more. Even more. Now, I made obvious cuts in there. That's ridiculous. So now we're gonna get to the game and let's see what it's like. Yeah, testing out the controls. Oh, that's kind of nice. Oh, it's a beat 'em up. It's a Final Fight Streets of Rage ripoff. Wonderful. So yeah, I remember the comic when Spider-Man beat up Steve. You do now. So moving on, it's a lot of the same looking backgrounds, same characters. Yep, I'm pretty sure this happened in the comic. Interesting, they bring up the punches and the kapows and things from the old 1960s Adam West Batman. For some reason, comic books have not been able to get away from that. Apparently people love the campy style. Oh, beating up Mike again. Now we got Brett and Alamo. Huh. Anyways, now we finally get to the boss. Alright, it's gonna be No. It's 2 girls. Yeah, I remember when Spider-Man beat up those 2 girls. So we just use our shield for a little bit. And, you know, when we find these 2, we need more appropriate music. Let's get that going. Okay, so we're down to just Lizzie. Yeah, I remember when he shoulder blocked her. Alright, well this is the Sega version. Let's look at the Nintendo version. Alright, right away the sound's better. That's something I want to bring up too. There's a debate between what was better, the SNES and the Genesis. By far, everyone will agree that the Super Nintendo had much better sound. So that much we can agree on. So not, again, looking the same here. Not much different. So let's just get this game going and... Oh, it's the exact same shit. Okay, let's do a side-by-side here, guys. This is just kind of a comparison I wanted to do. Let's just compare the 2 versions. Super Nintendo's on the right, the Genesis is on the left. Yep, still beating up Mike and Billy. Basically, it's a straight port of the 2 games. Which one it was developed for, who cares? It's not an essential debate. But this is just me showing you that this is essentially the exact same game on both sides. So we're beating up Malcolm, Hayden. Let's just go forward. This is where we left off in the Sega version. This stage sucks. Those arrows you're seeing are not telling you how to get through the level. They're telling you how to avoid the lightning. So you got to move from side to side and you see the platform and you're constantly trying to avoid the lightning, otherwise that happens and that can knock you down. I had a lot more. I'm not going to sit here and go through this forever, but this was just a pain in the ass. So yeah, bad programming there. So now we're moving forward. You know, graphically it's not a bad game. Sound wise it's not a bad game. So you know, is it a bad LJN game? Let's keep going through and we'll make that decision towards the end of the vid. Moving along, still hitting those sides, trying to avoid everything. And finally we're getting... Okay, then Doppelganger shows up to make it even more fun. Luckily I pretty much got through without having any problems with him. Alright, so let's see. Is it another... We're moving to the next stage. Do we get a fight a boss? What do we got? Oh, alright. So we got Doppelganger and Sheik. Alright, that's kind of cool. So we finally get some real bosses showing up. Doppelganger's terrible. Okay. Oh, wait. I beat him? No, I didn't. And back to more of the comic. skip through some of it. All right, so now we get to the next stage, and let's see what we got. Whoa, more of the same. Rick and Mark this time, though. The thing they brought up in the game, which I want to talk about in the comic, is he's supposed to have, like, really hurt ribs and everything. There was nothing indicating that. Like, no subtle references. You could still pick up garbage bins. Let's see who the boss is this time. What? So... yeah, some dude showed up with a billy club and Cloak and Dagger show up. Alright. And more of the comic. Wow. You know, it's kind of interesting, but at this point, I have mixed feelings on this. It's great. Probably people who like the comic liked it. I didn't read the comic, so I don't know if it's accurate or not. But those who just want to play a game... Okay, so now we're fighting Doppelganger again. Yeah, okay. At the end of this fight, there it is. He's supposed to be killing Dagger, and you can't see it. For some reason, the screen doesn't go on it. You have to be down to see it. So, back to the comic again. But now we got Venom. Well, of course I'm going to take Venom. So let's see what we got. Let's see if he's any different, because I've been playing as boring Spider-Man. Let's see what we got. And testing the controls. It's the same character, just... So let's go through more of these stages. Oh, look. Mark is back. Oh, this time it's Alex and Paul. My bad. The other thing is that these type of bosses, like those girls with the hair were bosses before, well now they're regular enemies. That's the running thing with this game. As you fight the people who are not major villains, they come back as regular enemies. You know, I will say they gave Venom a better, more visceral look to him, feel with the attacks. So that's kind of nice, but the novelty wears off fast when you realize it's just more and more of the same. I remember the comic when he beat up that girl, Sarah. So what do we got? What do we got? Oh, it's the guys that I couldn't fight Spider-Man with before. Who uses a billy club these days? And who names their fat kid Elmo? That's not right. So, redundant. They're not entirely difficult. You notice my health bar was flashing there for a second. If you hit so many times in a row without getting hit, you get power moves, which is kind of cool. But it's not very reliable. Like, I've had it just, you're both to have the power hit and it just doesn't go off. So we're still fighting, beating up Ron. I think Elmo's gone already. Okay. So what do we get? Do we get to finally fight Emo Goblin? Maybe Morbius? Who do we got? Okay, more comic. Okay. Well, now we're going to the park. And it's Doppelganger again, and Shriek. Alright, and Carnage is sitting back. Maybe he'll get involved, man. I can fight Carnage. Maybe it won't be more of the same. I will say Shriek is a cheap bitch. That I will say. Boss fights are challenging. Almost cheap, though. Okay, so we died. Let's try it again. Let's go forward in the fight a little bit here. Let's get going. There we go. No, it's another cutscene. Yeah, I think that's the problem with this game, is that I think it's great that they try to go off the comic, but it really wasn't. It was made for comic fans, but they're reading the comics. They don't need to go through all this boring stuff. They know, like, hey, this isn't exactly how it went down in the comic. And for those of us who weren't in the comic, we're going, okay, what's the point? Like, let's get going, let's get moving. So I give it points for, honestly, its ingenuity. Let's go back to Spider-Man here. But it just failed to miss the mark because the people who was marketing it to really didn't care. And, you know, those of us that just wanted to play a superhero game were getting a virtual comic, which we really didn't care about either. So, let's see who our next boss is. If it's someone not, you know, if it's not the hemoglobin, we'll move on here. Uncross checker. Let's take a look. And it's just regular guys. All right, we're gonna turn this off in a second. This is what we got though in the 80s, guys. You guys got first-person shooters. We got beat 'em ups.
As I said in the gameplay for Maximum Carnage, back in the 80s and 90s with the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Master System, all that stuff, the generic game to make was either platformers or beat 'em ups. Nowadays, we get run in the face rolled with first-person shooters. Everything's a first-person shooter now. We had beat 'em ups and platformers. Now we're going to get into a game that was not made by LJN, but the reason why I'm going to go into it is the sequel to Maximum Carnage, and it was actually done by one of the developers. And this is something else that was going on, was LJN was just a publisher. Essentially, from what happened is they had several companies, and I'll get into who those companies were besides this one, that would just make games for them. And my understanding of how the process worked was it was just bid out. You know, who could make the game for the cheapest amount, which is why you got what you got. Don't mind the background noise, guys. I live in the hood. So let's get into this game made by Software Creations, and it's Separation Anxiety.
Okay, so this is Separation Anxiety, the sequel, and this is on the Super Nintendo. Yes, Acclaim was the publisher for this game, and Software Creations was the developer. LJN was gone at this point. This was made a year later. LJN no longer existed, and I'll talk about that in the next video as well as to what happened there. And this one, instead of getting a comic, you get walls of text. Walls of text. Already looks cheaper. Oh, wall of text. I guess it's better than the comic. I don't know. I think I'd take the comic versus a wall of text. This is something you put in the instruction manual, not in the game. It looks cheaper. Oh, Lord. Wow, a year later, and this is what we get. Oh boy. So, I guess right here, guys, this really goes to show that maybe LJN wasn't as bad as you thought they were. They put out a better game than this, at least published a better game than this. And a lot of you are probably thinking to yourself, wait, this was Acclaim? Acclaim did this? They put out such great games. Yeah, Acclaim did. They did put out some great games. They also put out some bad ones, and if I get time next video, maybe I'll talk a little bit about it, but since we're talking about LJN, I can't see why we would ever talk about Acclaim. So what you're seeing is a lot of the enemies from the other game just way poorly done. Venom looks like a rubber man. Let's move on. Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. I'm just kind of skipping to a boss. Fighting another rubber dude. So let's see. Beat the boss here, come on. It sounds not as good. Actually, what they had done is they used basically rejected songs from Green Jello in the last game that they had left over and put them in here. Yeah, this guy shows up at the end of almost every boss fight and moves you to the same room. Why, I don't know. Now I'm fighting Cobra Commanders. Is G.I. Joe gonna show up during this? Wow. I'm just more in awe, you guys, is staring at this game, and having played it, of just how a game in 1995 could be this bad. This is almost as bad as Separation. Not Separation Anxiety, but the Sinister Six. Passwords. This game does use a password system. I got almost to the end of the game on this one before I finally just quit. This is the only password I saw. More walls of text. Again, I would rather have the comic book. Thinking back, it's my fault. I shouldn't have complained about the comics. Something else in beat 'em up games, guys, is you always have the elevator stage. Every single time. So let's skip to the boss of this, and yeah, you gotta fight 4 guys before him. Okay, so now we're to the boss. Let's see what we got. Static Electricity Man. Sweet. This is pretty bad. I will say it was nice they gave us a full life and an extra life and some health before we fought him. Wow. Alright, let's take a look at a couple of the other levels here. Yeah, see, no password. Oh, wall text. Wonderful. Okay, oh, it's just a recycled city stage with stalactites. And now we're in a mall with really bad rendered foregrounds with stock palm trees. So, getting to the end of this one, we're going to wrap this up real fast. This is an LJN game. But what I wanted to look at was what one of their developers was doing for them. So maybe it wasn't exactly the publisher that was all bad. Maybe it was the developers they were going for. But that's something we'll go into more in the part 3. But I wanted you to see this for what it is. Again, remember this was made by Acclaim, put out by a developer that LJN used. So maybe they're off the hook for that one. Maybe we can blame the developer. We'll see who to blame in the next episode of the Vanspective LJN Part 3.